The rain had already soaked through my coat by the time I reached the docks. My hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the message that had shattered my world just an hour ago. We have your brother. You have 1 hour. No signature, no mercy. The wind off the Hudson carried the scent of diesel and iron. Cargo ships loomed like dark sentinels. Every sound, the slap of ropes, the creak of metal, felt like a countdown to disaster. Somewhere out there, my brother was begging me not to do what I was about to do, but I would do it anyway, because I knew who the message came from. Adrian Moretti. The man whispered about in every back alley of New York. The man who turned betrayal into an art form and loyalty into a weapon. The ruthless head of the Moretti Syndicate, and now, the only person who could save my brother's life. A black car rolled to a stop in front of me, tires whispering against wet pavement. The back door opened without a sound. "Get in," a voice commanded. The man inside was not Adrian, his enforcer maybe. Thick shoulders, shaved head, a gun pressed carelessly against his thigh like it belonged there. I hesitated for half a second, then slid into the leather seat, the door sealing me inside like a tomb. The city blurred past, neon smeared across the window. My reflection looked pale, hollow-eyed. I clutched the ring in my pocket, my mother's ring, the last piece of family I had left, and whispered a promise into my palm. "Hold on, Daniel. I'm coming." The car stopped at an iron gate flanked by stone lions. Cameras turned toward us like living things. The gate opened, slow and deliberate, revealing a mansion that looked carved out of darkness itself. Sharp angles, shuttered windows, not a single sign of life. Inside, warmth hit me like a trap snapping shut. Everything gleamed, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, polished brass. The contrast to the storm outside made it worse somehow, like stepping into the lair of a predator. Adrian Moretti waited at the top of the staircase. He was taller than I remembered from the photographs, broader. His black suit fit like armor. His gaze, cold gray, almost silver, didn't waver as I climbed the steps. I wanted to look away, but his eyes anchored me, steady and unreadable. "You came," he said. His voice was low, smooth, dangerous in its calm. "I wasn't sure you would. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Some are just more final than others." He gestured toward a sitting room. I followed, every step echoing like a warning. On the table, a single envelope lay waiting. He picked it up, held it between 2 fingers, and tossed it toward me. Inside was a photo of my brother. Bruised, bound, a gag across his mouth. Behind him, a wall I didn't recognize, sprayed with graffiti. My knees nearly buckled. "What do you want?" I whispered. Adrian studied me for a long moment, his thumb brushing the edge of his cufflink. "Marriage." The word landed like a bullet. "You're insane." He smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. That's the rumor. I couldn't breathe. "Why me?" "Because your brother owes me more than he can pay, and because you," he said, stepping closer until I could feel the heat radiating from him, "are a far more valuable currency." "I don't belong in your world." "You do now." I wanted to scream, to run, but all I could do was stare. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded document, and placed it on the table. A marriage license. My name already filled in. "This isn't a negotiation," he said quietly. "It's an exchange." "And if I say no?" His expression didn't change. "Then Daniel dies tonight." The words sliced through the air like glass. For a moment, all I could hear was the thunder outside. Then I heard my own voice, quiet but sure. "I'll do it." Something flickered in his eyes, approval maybe, or triumph. He signaled to someone behind me. A woman in a gray suit entered, carrying a briefcase and a pen. She didn't look at me once as she laid out the papers. "Sign," he said. My hand shook as I took the pen. My signature looked foreign, like someone else had written it. The notary stamped the document, snapped her briefcase shut, and vanished as quickly as she had appeared. Adrian extended his hand. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Moretti." The title burned worse than any brand, but I took his hand because I had no choice. His grip was firm, possessive, his thumb brushing over my ring finger, the one that would soon bear his mark. "Daniel, you'll let him go now?" He tilted his head slightly. "He'll be returned to you tomorrow, safe, assuming you don't try anything foolish." "What does that mean?" "It means you stay here tonight." He turned toward the hallway. "Your room is upstairs. You'll find it's, comfortable." "I'm not your prisoner." "Of course not," he said without looking back. "You're my wife." He left me standing there, heart pounding, hands still trembling around the pen that had signed away my freedom. When I reached the room, I locked the door behind me. It was beautiful, too beautiful. A four-postered bed, white curtains, a balcony overlooking the storm. Every detail screamed control. Even the perfume on the pillow was wrong, something floral and cold. I pulled off my wet coat, sat on the edge of the bed, and let the silence press down. I thought of my brother's laugh, his stupid jokes, the way he'd promised me he'd stay out of trouble. I thought of how one mistake had led me here, to a stranger's mansion, to a marriage built on blackmail. Somewhere below, I heard footsteps, steady, unhurried. Adrian's, maybe. I whispered to myself, just one night, then Daniel will be free. But a part of me already knew the truth. Adrian Moretti never gave without taking something greater in return, and by morning, he would own more than my name. He would own me. Morning came gray and slow, like the sky couldn't decide whether to rain again or let the sun through. I hadn't slept. Every creak of the mansion had kept me alert. Each shadow on the wall, every whisper of the wind through the curtains. Somewhere deep down, I expected someone to open the door, to tell me it was over, but the Nambrel never turned. When I finally rose, the dress I'd worn the night before was still damp. A knock startled me. "Breakfast is served, Mrs. Moretti," a woman's voice said through the door. Polite, detached. I opened it to find a maid dressed in gray. Her eyes lowered. "Downstairs, ma'am. The master is waiting." The master. The word hit like a slap. The dining room was all glass and gold, a view of the gardens that stretched beyond the high iron fence. Adrian sat at the head of the table, reading something on his phone. He looked up when I entered. One brief glance that felt like a scan, like he was assessing every weakness. "Good morning, wife," he said. His voice was steady, unreadable. "Sit." I did, though my stomach turned at the sight of the food. Eggs, fruit, coffee poured into bone-white china. "Daniel?" I asked, ignoring the plate. "Alive," he said. "For now." "For now?" My hands clenched around the napkin. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he set his phone aside and leaned back in his chair. "You'll see him tonight, after our marriage is formalized." It was formalized last night. His mouth curved slightly. "On paper. I prefer something less bureaucratic." I stared at him. "You mean a wedding?" "Something like that." He sipped his coffee, unhurried. "You'll wear white. My people will attend. Appearances matter, even in my world." "In your world," I said bitterly, "where blackmail counts as romance." That earned the smallest flicker of amusement in his eyes. "You're brave. I like that. Most women wouldn't have come." "I'm not most women." "No, you're not." For For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the rain easing off outside. He studied me the way someone studies a chessboard, calculating, patient, deadly. Finally, he said, "You should know something, Eliza. I don't take kindly to betrayal." "Neither do I." "Then we'll get along just fine." He rose, placing his napkin beside his plate, and left the room without another word. The rest of the morning passed like a dream I couldn't wake from. A woman named Livia appeared with boxes, silk gowns, heels, jewelry that glinted like ice. She never said who had chosen them, but I knew. By the time I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the reflection. My hair curled softly over my shoulders, my dress whispering with every movement. I looked like someone else, someone born into the kind of wealth I had only ever glimpsed from the outside. When I descended the stairs, Adrian was waiting at the bottom. His suit was black, tailored within an inch of perfection. No tie, just that open collar and the kind of confidence that didn't need embellishment. His gaze lingered as I approached, traveling over the gown, the necklace, the way my hands trembled before I forced them still. "You clean up well, thanks to your staff." He offered his arm. "Smile, Mrs. Moretti. We're in love, remember?" The words twisted something sharp in my chest. "Are we?" He didn't answer, just guided me through the hall and out towards the courtyard, where rows of chairs and white flowers waited. The ceremony was small, but staged for show. His men in tailored suits, a priest who looked like he'd seen too much, a string quartet playing softly in the background. Every detail choreographed. When the vows began, my voice almost failed. My mind flickered with images of Daniel, of him bound and bleeding in that photo. So I forced the words out, each one tasting like ash. "I do." Adrian's "I do" came without hesitation. When he slid the ring onto my finger, his touch lingered, warm, deliberate, claiming. He leaned close enough for only me to hear. "You belong to me now." The crowd clapped politely, as if we were some society couple instead of two people bound by fear. Cameras flashed, champagne poured, and I smiled because that was what I was supposed to do. But behind my smile, my heart raced. That night, the mansion buzzed with quiet celebration. The guests had gone, but the tension hadn't. I found Adrian in his office, standing by the window, his reflection caught in the rain-smeared glass. "Where's Daniel?" I asked. "You promised I could see him." He turned slowly. "You will?" "When?" "When I know I can trust you." My breath hitched. "Trust me? You forced me into this." He crossed a room in 3 strides. "You think I wanted a wife? You think this was my idea of fun?" His tone dropped, dangerous and low. "You're leverage, Eliza. But you're also a liability. I'm still deciding which one wins." "Then decide fast, because my brother doesn't have time for your games." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of his breath. "Careful," he said softly. "I like fire, but I also know how to put it out." Something in his eyes, some shadow of pain, made me hesitate. For just a heartbeat, I saw the man beneath the monster, and that, somehow, scared me more. Why him? Why Daniel? His jaw tightened. He made a deal with the wrong people. Stole from me to pay another debt. That kind of thing doesn't go unpunished. He didn't mean intent doesn't erase consequences. Then, after a pause, he's alive because of you. Remember that. He brushed past me, heading for the door. Where are you going? I demanded. To make sure your brother stays that way. And then he was gone, leaving the scent of his cologne and the echo of his words behind. Hours later, I stood on the balcony outside my room, staring at the city lights far beyond the gates. Somewhere out there, Daniel was waiting. Somewhere out there, I was still free. But down below, I caught movement. A figure near the fountain. Adrian, speaking to one of his men. His posture sharp, controlled. Even from this distance, I could tell this was not a man who slept easy. When he looked up suddenly, our eyes met. For a long, charged moment, he didn't move. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded before turning away. And in that single nod, I realized something I hadn't before. Adrian Moretti might have forced me into his world, but he wasn't entirely untouched by mine. Maybe that was his weakness. Or maybe, God help me, it would become mine. That night, sleep refused to come. The mansion was too quiet, too heavy, with the kind of silence that carried secrets. I kept replaying Adrian's words. He's alive because of you. It wasn't comfort. It was a warning, a reminder that every breath my brother took depended on a man who didn't believe in mercy. I turned over again, staring at the ceiling. Maybe I could find Daniel myself. There had to be a way. A faint sound cut through the silence. Footsteps, distant but steady. I slipped out of bed and crept towards the door. The hallway was dim, lit only by the pale glow of the chandeliers downstairs. I followed the sound until it led me to a room I hadn't seen before. It was a study, lined with shelves and maps pinned across one wall. At the center stood Adrian, his jacket off, his sleeves rolled, veins flexing against his forearms as he loaded a pistol. He looked up, unsurprised. You don't sleep much. Neither do you, I said. He checked the weapon, clicked the safety on, and set it aside. In my world, sleep is a weakness. Then you must be invincible. A hint of a smile touched his mouth. Hardly. Invincibility is an illusion. Control, though, that's real. Is this what this is? Control? You lock people up and call it protection? He studied me for a long moment, then walked around the desk until he was standing only a few feet away. You think I enjoy this? I think you enjoy power. Power keeps people alive, Eliza. I've buried enough to know what happens when I don't have it. Something raw flickered behind his eyes. I wanted to hate him, but part of me wanted to understand the man who had built an empire from blood and fear. Before I could speak, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and for the first time, I saw his composure crack. What is it? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he snatched his jacket and barked an order into the phone. Keep the perimeter tight. No one leaves until I say. Then he turned to me. Stay here. Adrian! But he was already gone, the sound of his boots echoing down the hall. I hesitated only a second before following. The corridor opened into the foyer, and through the glass doors I saw headlights flooding the drive. 3 SUVs, engines rumbling, men stepping out with weapons drawn. Adrian was already there, his men forming a line behind him. The night air was electric with tension. I pressed myself against the wall, watching as a tall man stepped from the lead car. Blonde, smug, too smooth to belong anywhere near this much danger. "Gavin," Adrian said, his voice sharp, "you're a long way from Jersey. I came to return a favor. You took something of mine." Adrian's jaw flexed. "If you mean the shipment you tried to steal, it's mine by right." "I wasn't talking about that," Gavin said, his gaze sliding past him, toward me. My blood turned to ice. Adrian followed the look, his body tensing. "Inside," he ordered without looking at me. I didn't move. "Who is he?" "No one you need to know." Gavin smiled. "Oh, she'll want to know. Her brother made a deal with me first, promised me the same loyalty he gave you. Funny thing about loyalty, it gets expensive." Adrian's men raised their weapons. Gavin's did the same. For a breathless second, no one moved. Then Gavin said, "Tell you what, Moretti, let her go, and I'll forget your brother's debt." Adrian laughed once, cold and short. "She's not a bargaining chip, she's my wife." The words hit me like a jolt. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. Gavin's expression darkened. "Then I guess you've made your choice." Gunfire shattered the night. Adrian lunged, pulling me down behind one of the marble columns as bullets ricocheted across the courtyard. Glass exploded, the air filled with shouts, engines, chaos. He pressed me down, shielding me with his body as he fired back, precise and calm. "Stay down," he barked. "I can't. Do it." Something whizzed past my ear, a crack of heat and sound. I covered my head, heart pounding so hard it drowned out everything else. Then, as suddenly as it started, the gunfire stopped. Adrian stood, breathing hard, smoke curling from his weapon. Gavin's men were gone, retreating into the night. A few of Adrian's guards moved to secure the gate. He turned to me, checking for wounds, his hand gripping my chin to tilt my face toward the light. "You're not hurt?" "I'm fine," I said, though my voice trembled. He didn't believe me. His thumb brushed a smear of dust from my cheek, lingered there a second too long. "You shouldn't have come down here," I snapped. And I did. The anger in his eyes wasn't at me, it was at himself. "Was that about Daniel?" I asked softly. Adrian's jaw clenched. "Partly. Your brother's greed started this war. Gavin wants leverage. You just became it. So I'm a pawn now?" "You were always more than that," he said, too quietly. Before I could ask what he meant, he turned away, barking orders to his men. I caught fragments, double patrols, secured the perimeter, no one leaves the grounds. When he finally looked back at me, something in his expression had hardened. "You're moving into my room." "What?" "It's the safest place in the house. You'll stay where I can see you." "I don't want—" "It's not up for debate." He started toward the stairs, and after a long second, I followed. His room was larger than my entire apartment. Dark wood, steel accents, a wall of glass that overlooked the city. It smelled faintly of smoke and cedar. "Bathrooms through there," he said, nodding toward a door. "Closet stocked. Stay away from the balcony unless I say otherwise." I folded my arms. "Do you ever ask instead of order?" He met my eyes. "Not when people's lives depend on it." "Does mine?" He hesitated, just long enough to tell me the truth I already knew. "Yes." He moved to the window, looking out over the grounds. The light from the city cast sharp lines across his face. Hard, beautiful, dangerous. "I'll get Daniel back," he said finally. "But when I do, you'll still be my wife." "Until when?" He turned then, his gaze locking on mine. "Until I decide it's safe for you to leave." I swallowed hard. "And if it never is?" A slow, unreadable smile curved his lips. "Then you'll never leave." And for the first time, I couldn't tell if that terrified me or thrilled me. Morning sunlight spilled through the tall windows,
warm and bright against the cool marble. For the first time since I'd arrived, I saw the mansion in daylight, less like a fortress, more like a museum of secrets. Everything gleamed, but nothing felt alive. I woke in Adrian's bed, though we hadn't slept close. He'd taken the couch by the window, half in shadow, gun resting on the table beside him. Even asleep, his body looked coiled, ready to strike. I studied him quietly, wondering what kind of man guarded himself even in dreams. He stirred as I rose. "You should eat," he said without opening his eyes. "I'm not hungry." "You will be. You have a long day ahead." I crossed my arms. "Planning another performance?" That earned a faint smirk. He sat up, his hair mussed, his shirt creased. Somehow, the imperfections made him look more human and more dangerous. "You'll be meeting someone this afternoon, one of my associates. I need you to play the part." "The part of what?" "My wife," he said simply. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You mean my prop?" "Call it what you want. It keeps you and your brother alive." The mention of Daniel twisted my gut. "If this is about trust, maybe start by keeping your promises. You said you'd see him." "You will, but not until I've secured his release. Gavin won't let go easily." "Then let me help." He paused, surprised. "Help?" "Yes. I know Daniel. I know how he thinks, where he might run. You're fighting shadows, Adrian. Let me make them real." He studied me, head tilted. "You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both." For the first time, his expression softened. "All right, Elisa, show me what you can do." We met in the study, maps and ledgers spread across the desk. He showed me the last known locations of Gavin's operations, warehouses, docks, fronts hidden under shell companies. "Daniel worked here," I said, pointing to one on the Lower East Side. "He told me once about a job at a storage facility, said it was temporary, good money. I thought he meant shipping." Adrian's gaze sharpened. "You remember the name?" "Something with a number. 47, I think?" He flipped open a folder, pulled out a photo of a rusted sign. "Pier 47 Storage." "That's it." He nodded once. "You might have just saved us a week." A strange surge of pride rose in my chest, quickly followed by guilt. Why did his approval feel like oxygen? He noticed the hesitation. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I said too fast. He didn't push. Instead, he gathered the papers, slid them into a folder, and looked back at me. "You did well. You have instincts." I had to learn fast. When your family owes half the city money, survival becomes an instinct. His expression shifted. Something unreadable flickered behind his eyes. "You and I aren't so different, Eliza." "I think we are." "Maybe, but we both protect the people we love, no matter the cost." The silence between us thickened until the knock on the door broke it. "Sir, the associate is here." Adrian's demeanor changed instantly, calm, composed, every emotion locked away. He turned to me. "Time to play your part." The associate was a woman, tall, elegant, eyes like polished steel. She introduced herself as Mara Leone. "She handled Mr. Moretti's financial interests," she said smoothly, shaking my hand. "And I've been dying to meet the woman who convinced him to settle down." Adrian's lips twitched. "Don't start rumors, Mara." "Too late," she said, her smile sharp. "They're already circulating." The three of us sat. I stayed quiet at first, letting Adrian handle the business talk, contracts, routes, shifting alliances. But I watched, listening, noting every subtle exchange. Mara wasn't just a business partner. She was testing him. At one point, she turned to me. "Tell me, Mrs. Moretti, how are you finding life under Adrian's roof?" I forced a polite smile. "Intense." She laughed lightly. "That's one word for it. I imagine it's an adjustment. You could say that. Adrian's gaze flicked to me, a silent warning, a reminder to stay guarded, but I couldn't help myself. I suppose every marriage has its surprises. Mara arched her brow. And what has surprised you most? Adrian's jaw tightened, but I spoke first. That the devil doesn't always wear horns. Sometimes he wears a suit. The room went still. Then Mara smiled slowly, as if she just heard the most fascinating thing all week. Oh, I like her, she said to Adrian. She's got bite. Adrian's eyes met mine across the table. Cold fire, restrained amusement, something I couldn't name. She does. When Mara left, the tension in the room finally eased. Adrian walked to the bar, poured himself a drink. You shouldn't provoke people like her, he said quietly. Mara may look polished, but she's sharper than glass. Then maybe she should stop touching what cuts. He turned, drink in hand, studying me. You're not afraid of me, are you? Should I be? Most are. Maybe I don't see you the way they do. His eyes darkened. And how do you see me? I hesitated, like a man who's forgotten what mercy feels like. The silence between us hummed, alive and dangerous. Then he said, You shouldn't try to humanize me, Eliza. It'll only hurt you. Maybe I already am hurt. He set the glass down, the sound sharp against the bar, then stopped picking at the wound. I opened my mouth, but a sudden buzz from his phone cut through the tension. He checked the message, and his entire posture changed. What is it? He looked at me. Your brother. My heart lurched. What about him? He's alive. Gavin sent proof. He turned the phone so I could see. Daniel, tied to a chair, bruised but breathing. A timestamp from less than an hour ago. Oh, God, I whispered. Adrian's voice hardened. He's baiting me. Then don't go. He looked up, eyes blazing. You think I'll sit here while your brother's paraded like a trophy? He's using him to get to you. And he succeeded. I'm not letting that bastard win. I grabbed his arm. Please, there has to be another way. He looked down at where I touched him, then back at me. For a second, the fury faded. You don't understand, he said softly. Gavin doesn't stop. Not until someone makes him. Then let me go with you. He froze. Absolutely not. I'm not asking your permission. Eliza, either you take me, or I find my own way there. He stared at me, the war behind his eyes raging silently. Finally, he swore under his breath. You'll do exactly what I say. No heroics. I nodded, and for the first time, we were on the same side. The drive to the docks felt like moving through a pulse of dread. Rain streaked across the windshield, turning the city into a blur of gray and neon. Adrian sat beside me, silent, his jaw tight, one hand resting near the gun at his hip. The convoy followed, 2 black SUVs full of his men. Every time we stopped at a red light, their headlights glowed like watchful eyes behind us. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the tension, but the air between us was thick with unsaid things. Fear, guilt, something dangerously close to trust. You're sure it's Pier 47? He asked finally, voice low. Yes. If it's a trap. I know. He glanced at me, then, quick and sharp. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. The corner of his mouth twitched, but he said nothing more. When we reached the waterfront, fog hung low over the bay, swallowing sound. The pier stretched ahead, rusted containers, flickering floodlights, the distant echo of gulls. Adrian motioned for his men to fan out. Stay behind me, he ordered. I told you I can handle myself. I don't doubt that. But Gavin doesn't play fair. We moved carefully, boots crunching over gravel. Somewhere in the distance, a chain clattered, metal against metal. I caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow slipping behind a stack of crates. Adrian lifted his gun instantly, signaling his men.
Then, from the far end of the pier, a voice rang out. "Moretti!" It was Gavin. He stepped into the light, smirking, a cigarette burning between his fingers. Two of his men dragged someone forward. My brother. Daniel looked broken. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, a trickle of dried blood on his lip, but when he saw me, his entire body jerked. "Eliza?" His voice cracked. What are you doing here?" My heart stuttered. "I came to get you." Gavin's grin widened. "How sweet. Family reunion?" Adrian's tone was pure steel. "Let him go, Gavin. You think you can order me?" Gavin blew out a puff of smoke, gesturing lazily. "See, that's your problem. You think everyone listens when you bark. But me? I like to watch you sweat. Don't test me. Or what? You'll shoot me in front of your pretty little wife?" Adrian's expression didn't change, but I saw the muscle twitch in his jaw. Gavin's men shoved Daniel to his knees. "How about we make this fun? I'll trade him for her." Adrian didn't hesitate. "Not happening. Then you'll lose them both." The gun pressed against Daniel's head. I gasped, taking a step forward before Adrian's arm shot out, holding me back. "Stay behind me," he said, again, voice low and deadly calm. "Adrian, I said stay." The next few seconds blurred. A gun went off, not near us, but somewhere to the left. Then chaos exploded. Adrian's men fired, shouts filled the air, bullets slicing through fog. I dropped to the ground, crawling toward Daniel as the world turned to thunder and smoke. Someone grabbed my arm. I twisted, swinging wildly, but a hand caught my wrist. "Eliza, stop. It's me." "Daniel." He pulled me close, shaking, blood on his knuckles. "We have to go." "Adrian?" "He's busy being a hero," Daniel spat. "Come on." But something in his tone, too sharp, too desperate, made me hesitate. "What did you do?" His eyes flicked away. "I made a deal. He wasn't supposed to come." "You... what deal?" "Gavin promised if I lured him here, we'd both walk free." The world tilted. "You lied to me." "Eliza, I didn't have a choice." Behind us, gunfire intensified. I could see Adrian moving through the fog, efficient, merciless, but he was outnumbered. I shoved Daniel's hand off. "You brought him into this." He grabbed my shoulders. "I was trying to protect you. By selling us both out?" A shout rang out. Gavin's voice. "Enough." When I turned, he was there, gun aimed directly at me. Adrian saw it too. "Gavin," he roared, firing, but he was a second too late. The shot cracked through the air, and pain bloomed across my shoulder. I fell back, the impact knocking the breath from my lungs. Daniel screamed. Adrian ran toward me, fury etched across his face, firing until Gavin dropped. Then everything went still. Adrian knelt beside me, his hand pressing against the wound. "Stay with me." "I'm fine," I whispered, though the world had started to dim around the edges. "You're not fine." He tore off his jacket, pressing it against my shoulder. His voice was rough, raw. "You're going to be okay." "Daniel?" "He's alive," Adrian said, after a pause. "But he's not going anywhere. Not yet." "Because of me?" "Because of him. He put you in that line of fire. I don't forgive easily." "Adrian, don't." He stood, running a hand through his hair. "I'm trying to keep you breathing, Eliza. Don't make me regret it." He turned toward the window, jaw tight. Outside, dawn was breaking, soft gold spilling over the skyline. "Why did you save me?" I asked quietly. He didn't look back. "Because you make me forget what kind of man I am." And somehow, that scared me more than the bullet ever had. The next few days blurred into one another, a haze of recovery, questions, and uneasy silences.
The mansion felt different now, less like a cage, more like a place caught between danger and safety. The staff spoke softly when they passed my room, eyes flicking toward the door like they feared what might happen if they lingered too long. Adrian hadn't left my side the first night after the shooting. He'd sat in the chair near the bed, half in the shadows, his hand occasionally brushing mine when I drifted in and out of sleep. He never said much, but when he did, his words came out like truths he didn't want to admit. Now, on the third morning, I found him in the garden. He stood by the fountain, the morning light slanting across his shoulders. His jacket hung loose, sleeves rolled to the elbow. He looked less like a crime lord and more like a man trying to remember how to breathe. "You should be resting," he said without turning. "I've been resting for 3 days. I needed air." He glanced over his shoulder, the faintest smile ghosting his lips. "You're stubborn. I get it from my brother." His smile faded, replaced with something sharper. "Daniel's lucky I haven't broken every bone in his body." "Don't," I said quickly. "He made a mistake. Mistakes get people killed. Then what am I still doing here?" That stopped him. He turned fully, eyes narrowing. The weight of his gaze made it hard to breathe. "You're here because I decided you would live." "No," I said, stepping closer. "I'm here because you saved me. There's a difference." The silence stretched. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked away, jaw tight. "I don't know why I did it. You should have been collateral. You were supposed to be a name on a paper, a pawn in a deal. And now," he exhaled, shaking his head, "now every decision I make, I think about how it affects you." I felt my heart twist. "That's not love, Adrian. That's control." His gaze snapped back to mine. "And what's the difference when the world wants to kill you?" "The difference," I said softly, "is choice." He stared at me like he wanted to argue, then turned back to the fountain, his reflection rippling in the water. "You think you understand me? I'm starting to. Then you should know. There's no going back." "Maybe not," I said, "but there's forward." That earned me another look, curious, dangerous, almost tender. "Careful, Eliza. You talk like someone who wants to stay." I wanted to deny it, to say that I only wanted my brother safe, my freedom back, my old life. But the truth caught in my throat, bitter and real. The world I'd known before felt distant, faded. Here, everything was sharper. Every emotion, every glance, every risk. "I just don't want either of us to lose ourselves," I said finally. He took a step closer. The space between us hummed with tension. "Maybe that's already happened." Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and the shift in his expression was immediate. Calm, cold, calculating. The mask was back. "What is it?" I asked. "Gavin's men are moving," he said. "Someone's trying to take advantage of the chaos." "Chaos you started." His eyes flicked to me, a spark of irritation and something like admiration. "You never miss a chance to challenge me, do you? Maybe I like reminding you that you're not untouchable." He smirked faintly. "Remind me again later. For now, I need to handle this." "Then let me come." He laughed under his breath. "You were shot 3 days ago. I'm fine." "You're not fine," he said sharply, "and you're not coming." I folded my arms. "You need someone who thinks differently, someone Gavin won't expect." He considered me for a moment, his gaze thoughtful. "You really don't know when to stop, do you? Not when my brother's life is still hanging in the balance." That earned me silence. Then, finally, he said, "Fine, you'll stay in the car. You don't move unless I say." Agreed. By evening, we were on the move again. Different location, different setup. This time, it was an abandoned hotel downtown, the kind of place that had once been elegant, but now sagged under years of decay. The windows were boarded, the neon sign flickered weakly above the entrance. Adrian's men moved first, sweeping the perimeter. I stayed inside the car, watching through the tinted glass.
My pulse thrummed with nerves and anticipation. I could see Adrian through the windshield, a shadow of command, barking orders with quiet precision. Then suddenly, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My breath caught. Don't trust him. He's lying about your brother. My fingers froze over the screen. Another message followed fast. Come to room 304. Alone. I'll prove it. I glanced toward Adrian. He was still outside, talking to one of his men, oblivious. It could be Gavin. It could be a trap. Or it could be Daniel. Before I could talk myself out of it, I slipped from the car, moving quickly toward the hotel's side entrance. The halls inside were dark, smelling of dust and mildew. The only light came from a flickering bulb at the far end. 304. Each step echoed too loud, my heart hammering in sync with my footsteps. When I reached the door, I hesitated. My hand shook as I turned the handle. The room was dim, curtains drawn. A figure stood near the window. Daniel? I whispered. The man turned, and my heart stopped. It wasn't Daniel. It was Gavin. Miss me, he said with a grin. Before I could run, two of his men appeared behind me. One grabbed my arms, pinning them. Gavin stepped closer, his smile widening. You were a hard woman to get alone. Adrian is very possessive. What do you want? The truth, he said smoothly. Your brother, he's not in Moretti's custody anymore. He's gone. Dead, most likely. I shook my head. You're lying. Am I? He held up a phone, tapping the screen. A video started playing, grainy footage of a body bag being zipped shut, blood smeared across the pavement. I couldn't breathe. No! Moretti never told you, did he? Oh, sweetheart, you really did marry the devil. Something cold and hollow spread through me. I didn't want to believe it, couldn't believe it. But the look on Gavin's face was pure triumph. You're lying, I repeated, though my voice cracked this time. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. Then ask your husband. And before I could speak, a gunshot split the air. One of Gavin's men dropped instantly. The other scattered. Adrian burst through the door, fury carved into every line of his face. Touch her again, and I'll end you. Gavin laughed, stepping back. Always the hero. Adrian fired once more, grazing his arm. This isn't a game. Oh, but it is. And you're losing. Then he was gone, crashing through the back window as his men followed. Adrian rushed to me, grabbing my face, his hands rough but careful. Are you hurt? I shook my head, trembling. He said Daniel's dead. Adrian's eyes darkened. He's lying. Are you sure? His silence told me everything I didn't want to know. The silence after Adrian's pause was worse than any scream. It pressed in from all sides, thick and cold, like the air itself refused to move. I could hear the faint ringing in my ears from the gunshots, but beneath it, something heavier. His breathing, slow and deliberate, like he was holding something back. Adrian, I whispered, my voice breaking. Tell me the truth. He didn't look at me. His hand, still gripping the gun, trembled ever so slightly. You don't need to see that video again. Answer me! He finally looked up. The gray of his eyes was darker now, clouded by something I couldn't read. Regret? Anger? Guilt? Maybe all of it. He's gone, Eliza. The floor tilted. For a moment, I thought I might faint. The world around me blurred. The smell of gunpowder, the sound of distant footsteps, the soft crackle of glass under Adrian's boots. All I could hear was the echo of that word. Gone. I stumbled back until I hit the wall. No, you're lying. You're... He tried, he said, cutting me off. His voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was hollow. We found the safe house 2 hours after Gavin sent the first photo.
Daniel was already gone when we got there. My knees gave out. I sank to the floor, pressing my hands to my mouth as if I could keep the scream inside. It didn't work. It tore through me anyway, raw and silent. Adrian moved toward me, but I shoved him away. You knew, and you didn't tell me. He didn't deny it. Why? Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have run, and Gavin would have used that to kill you too. I laughed, a broken, bitter sound. So you lied to me instead? Made me think he was still alive? I was trying to protect you. You don't get to decide how I break. The look he gave me then was something between fury and despair. He crouched down so we were eye level, his voice low and rough. I didn't want to see you fall apart. I didn't want to watch that light in you die. Then don't take everything from me. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The world outside might as well have stopped. Then Adrian stood, his voice quiet but firm. We're leaving. Now. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice. He reached for my arm, but I pulled back. You can't keep me here. You can't fix this by locking me away again. His expression hardened, the mask sliding back into place. You think walking into the night alone will bring him back? No, but it'll remind me who I am. He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my voice stopped him. Instead, he turned away, holstering his gun. You'll have your space, but you're not leaving my protection, not until Gavin is gone for good. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Back at the mansion, the world felt heavier. The walls seemed taller, the air colder. Every corner carried a memory of Daniel's laughter, of promises I couldn't keep, of the woman I used to be. Adrian kept his distance. For once, he didn't try to command or explain. He just disappeared into his office, shutting the door behind him. I could hear faint murmurs through the wall. His men, reports, plans for retaliation. But I didn't care. All I wanted was silence. That night, I stood on the balcony again. The city lights stretched like stars. The wind stung my face, tugging at my hair. Somewhere below, guards patrolled the grounds, silent and watchful. Daniel, I whispered into the dark, I'm so sorry. Tears came then, slow and hot. I let them fall, let them burn. I didn't notice Adrian until he spoke behind me. You'll catch a cold out here. I wiped my face quickly, turning away. You don't have to pretend to care. I'm not pretending. He stepped closer, his footsteps soft against the marble. I told myself I could control this, that I could control you, but I can't. Control isn't love. I never said it was. Then what is this? I asked, my voice shaking. Because it feels like I'm drowning, and you're the one holding me under. He flinched, barely, but I saw it. I never meant for you to be part of this, he said quietly. But you walked into my life and refused to be afraid of me. No one's done that before. I wasn't fearless. I was desperate. He exhaled slowly. Desperation looks a lot like courage when you wear it the way you do. Don't romanticize my pain. He gave a faint, rueful smile. That's the only language I know. For a moment, I almost laughed. Almost. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel his warmth even through the cold night air. Eliza, he said softly, you can hate me all you want, but you're not alone anymore. The words hit something deep, something I didn't want to admit still existed. I wanted to push him away, to scream, to tell him that being near him felt like standing too close to fire, but instead I whispered, why me? He looked at me for a long time before answering, because you make me want to be someone else. And then he walked away, leaving me with the sound of my heartbeat echoing in the empty space between us. The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices downstairs. Urgent, clipped. Adrian's men were gathered around the table, maps spread, the tension thick enough to taste. Adrian stood at the head of the table, all command again. The softness from last night was gone. Gavin's moving shipments through the East River tunnels. We hit him there, we end this. One of his men hesitated. Sir, after what happened... I don't care, Adrian snapped. He's not getting away again. I stepped into the doorway. You're going after him? Adrian looked at me. Yes. Then I'm coming. No. You can't stop me, I said, crossing my arms. He held my gaze, and for once there was no anger, only exhaustion. You don't even know what you're walking into. I know exactly what I'm walking into. The man who killed my brother. Something in my tone must have reached him, because after a long silence, he nodded once. Then you stay behind me, always. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't trust. It was something else. A shared purpose forged from loss and fury. And for the first time, Adrian Moretti and I were no longer enemies bound by a contract. We were soldiers, marching toward the same war. The tunnels beneath the East River were colder than I imagined, narrow arteries of rust and shadow, dripping with the slow heartbeat of leaking pipes. The air reeked of salt, metal, and gasoline. Our footsteps echoed in rhythm, a quiet promise that this time it would end. Adrian moved ahead of me, flashlight slicing through the dark, gun drawn and steady. His men fanned out behind us, silent professionals who knew death could come from any direction. Stay close, he said without looking back. I am close. Closer, he muttered. I swallowed a bitter smile. Even here, at the edge of a gunfight, he couldn't stop controlling every breath I took. But when his light flickered across the concrete wall and caught a streak of red, fresh blood smeared like a warning, I understood why. Trap? I whispered. He nodded once. Most likely. Then why are we still walking into it? Because I'm done hiding. There was something in his tone, steel wrapped around grief, that silenced me. We moved deeper. The tunnel opened into a cavernous loading area, where old tracks met a cluster of freight containers. The hum of generators filled the air, and standing in the center of it all, waiting like a devil in his throne, was Gavin. Well, well, he said, his voice echoing. The happy couple finally joins the party. Adrian raised his gun. You're running out of places to hide. I don't hide, he said easily. Unlike you, I don't need to play house to feel powerful. Though I can't blame you. She's worth the trouble. Don't, Adrian growled. Or what? You'll shoot him in front of her again? Come on, Adrian Moretti. She already knows what you are. Tell me, sweetheart, did he at least confess how your brother died? I flinched. Gavin saw it and grinned wider. Ah, so he didn't. Shut up, Adrian warned. He ignored him. Let me guess. You think your brother died bravely, fighting back? No, he begged, pleaded, said your name until he couldn't breathe. Enough! Adrian's voice cracked through the space like thunder. But the damage was done. My pulse roared in my ears. Is it true? I whispered. He didn't answer. Answer me! He closed his eyes briefly. He died protecting you. By working for you, I shot back. By getting caught between your war and your pride. By giving me the chance to save you, he said fiercely. That's what he wanted. You. Gavin clapped slowly, mock applause ringing off the walls. Touching, really. Almost makes me regret killing him. Adrian fired before he finished the sentence. The shot hit Gavin's shoulder, spinning him back against a crate. Chaos erupted, his men diving for cover, Adrian's responding in kind. Bullets tore through the air, sparks lighting the dark. Stay down, Adrian barked, shoving me behind a steel pillar. I crouched low, heart hammering, trying to count the shots. Every blast felt like the world collapsing 1 decibel at a time. Adrian, I shouted over the noise. We can't win this way. Stay where you are. But I saw something he didn't. The red drum beside Gavin, leaking fuel. A generator hummed inches away. If I could just reach it. I grabbed a broken pipe from the ground and crawled through the shadows. Adrian caught sight of me and cursed, "Eliza!" Too late. I swung the pipe hard, knocking the generator sideways. Sparks flew, catching the fuel. The explosion ripped through the tunnel, heat and light swallowing everything. The blast threw me backward, slamming me against the ground. For a second, there was nothing, just ringing, smoke, the taste of metal on my tongue. Then arms, strong, shaking, dragging me up. Adrian. "You are insane," he shouted, his voice hoarse. "You're welcome," I gasped. He laughed once, breathless and disbelieving. "You could have died. So could you." He stared at me, fury and awe warring behind his eyes. "You're going to be the death of me. Maybe we'll call it even." Behind him, fire licked the walls, swallowing the crates. Gavin was gone, disappeared into the smoke. Adrian cursed under his breath. "He's not dead. Then we finish this another way," I said, gripping his arm. He looked at me, really looked at me, and something in his expression softened. "You sound like me. Maybe I finally understand you." He shook his head, a tired smile ghosting across his lips. "God help us both." Hours later, we were back at the mansion. The fire crews would find nothing but ash and lies at the docks. Gavin had vanished again, leaving a trail of chaos and rumors. But for the first time, Adrian Moretti didn't seem invincible. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to me. His hands still trembled slightly, though he tried to hide it. "You shouldn't have done that. You're welcome again." He gave a quiet laugh. "You keep saying that like it makes me less furious." "It doesn't," I said, sipping the whiskey. "But it makes you less terrifying." He leaned against the bar, watching me through the dim light. "You know, you could have run. No one would have stopped you. I thought about it. And I realized I'm not done yet." His brow furrowed. "With what?" "With you." The silence stretched. Then slowly he crossed the room, stopping just in front of me. The air between us shifted, thick, electric. His hand lifted, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. "I don't know what this is," he said quietly, "but it's not supposed to happen." "Then stop it." He didn't. His thumb lingered against my jaw, tracing the tremor in my breath. "You think I won't?" "I think you can't." For a moment, neither of us moved. The distance between us was a breath, a heartbeat. Then he leaned in, slow enough that I could stop him, but I didn't. His lips met mine. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was all the things we'd been denying: rage, grief, desire, need. It tasted like whiskey and ashes and every unsaid word. My hands found his shoulders, gripping tight, pulling him closer instead of pushing away. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "Tell me to stop." I didn't. And that silence became its own kind of answer. Later, when I lay awake beside him, his arm draped across my waist, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what we'd just done. Somewhere in the city, Gavin was still alive. My brother was still gone. Nothing was fixed, and yet for the first time in days, I didn't feel completely hollow. Maybe it was wrong, maybe it was madness, but in Adrian's arms, for one fragile moment, I felt something that almost resembled peace. It wouldn't last, but neither of us were built for peace anyway. When morning came, the light felt strange, soft, golden, too pure for the kind of sins that had filled the night before. Adrian was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, his back to me. He hadn't shaved. His hair was damp from the shower, curling slightly at his collar. But it wasn't the domestic picture that made my heart stutter. It was the silence. He was thinking, and when Adrian Moretti thought, people usually died. "You're leaving," I said quietly. He didn't turn. "I have to." "Because of Gavin?" "Because of everything." He finally faced me, gray eyes unreadable. "You've done enough." "I'm not a liability." "You're a distraction," he said, not cruelly, just like he was stating a fact. "And if Gavin gets even a whisper that you're with me again, he'll use it." I swallowed the sting. "So what? You're locking me up again?" "I'm sending you away, somewhere safe." I laughed softly, disbelieving. "Safe doesn't exist in your world." His jaw clenched. "Then we'll build one." He meant it. That was the terrifying part. Adrian Moretti could will worlds into existence just by deciding they would bend. But I wasn't one of his empires. "You can't protect me from this, and you can't make me disappear just because it's easier than facing what we've done." He rose from the bed, towering, that familiar, controlled fury simmering behind his eyes. "You think this is easy for me?" "Yes," I said, meeting his gaze. "You make everything look easy, even breaking people." He stopped then, the anger slipping for just a breath. "I don't want to break you." "Then don't send me away." The silence stretched, tense and fragile. I saw it. His conflict, his pride wrestling with something he didn't know how to name. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at it once, and whatever tenderness had lived in his expression vanished. "They found something," he said. "Gavin made a move." "What kind of move?" He hesitated. "One that changes everything." We left the mansion within the hour. The convoy was smaller this time, just one SUV, fewer men. The air felt colder, heavier, like even the weather knew what was coming. Adrian didn't speak for most of the drive, eyes fixed on the road ahead. I wanted to ask questions, but his silence warned me not to. When we finally stopped, we were outside an old warehouse on the outskirts of Brooklyn. It looked abandoned, graffiti on the walls, windows shattered, but inside it was humming with power. Servers, monitors, men moving with purpose. "This is where I built it," Adrian said as we stepped in. "My first operation, before the money, before the name." I looked around. "Built what?" "My empire," he said simply. "And now Gavin is trying to burn it down." His second in command, a man named Luca, approached. "Sir, we traced Gavin's call last night. It came from one of your old properties." "Which one?" He hesitated. "The Queen's townhouse." Adrian froze. I didn't understand at first, but the way his face hardened told me everything. "That was my mother's house," he said quietly. "No one was supposed to know it still existed." "Maybe someone told him," I said. He turned slowly, eyes locking on mine. "Maybe." I shook my head. "No, you don't think—" "I don't know what to think anymore," he said. "Every move I make, he's there. Every safe house, every coded channel. It's like he's reading my mind. Or he's inside your circle, someone close." He didn't deny it. "Luca, double the security on all communications. Nobody leaves this building until I say." "Yes, boss." I followed Adrian as he climbed the narrow staircase to his office, overlooking the floor. Maps and photos covered the wall, lines connecting names, places, numbers. He paced in front of them like a man caught between fury and logic. "He's baiting me," he muttered. "He knows I'll come for that house." "So don't," I said. He looked at me, surprised. "You think I'll just let him desecrate the one thing I have left?" "I think walking into another trap won't fix it. Gavin's expecting rage, so give him calculation." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "You sound like me." "Maybe I'm learning." He studied me for a long moment. "I don't want you involved in this." "I'm already am." That silenced him. He turned away, staring out the window. "You should hate me," he said finally. I tried to. Didn't stick. He gave a faint laugh. You're impossible. So I've been told. Then his phone buzzed again. This time he didn't hesitate. He answered, switching to speaker. A distorted voice filled the room. Moretti. Gavin, Adrian said coldly, running out of men? Oh, I have enough, but you, my friend, you're running out of time. What do you want? Your attention, Gavin purred. I found something you'll want back. The sound of rustling fabric, then a muffled cry. My blood froze. It was a woman's voice. Recognize her, Gavin said. You should. She used to work for you, helped move your money offshore. Pretty little thing named Livia. Adrian's hand tightened around the desk. What did you do to her? Nothing yet, but she's talkative. Told me things about you, your wife, your brother-in-law. Adrian's eyes met mine, hard as steel. You're lying. Am I? Gavin chuckled. You think you're the only one who keeps secrets? You're standing in a nest of them. One move and it all collapses. The line went dead. Adrian's phone hit the wall, shattering. I stepped closer. Who is she? Livia Rossi. She was one of mine. Managed finances, laundering. I trusted her. And now she's with him? He didn't answer. You think she's the leak? I don't think, he said darkly. I know. By nightfall, we were back on the road. Adrian's men had tracked Gavin's new signal to an industrial site near the river, another warehouse, bigger this time, surrounded by cranes and stacked containers. The wind howled through the docks, carrying the scent of rain and oil. Stay in the car, Adrian said as he loaded his gun. I ignored him. We've been here before. He gave me a sharp look. Not like this. Then end it. He nodded once. I will. I caught his arm before he stepped out. Adrian, if you can't bring Livia back alive, don't let her die for nothing.
He looked at me for a long time, the shadows swallowing everything soft in his face. If she's betrayed me, he said quietly, there's no saving her. Then he was gone. Through the windshield, I watched him move like a shadow through the maze of containers, his men following close behind. Thunder rumbled in the distance. And for the first time, I wondered which would come first, revenge or ruin. The wind tore through the docks, howling against the steel containers, stacked like tombstones. Rain began to fall again, thin, cold, merciless. I sat in the SUV, heart pounding in rhythm with the thunder, every nerve alive with dread. Through the windshield, I could see Adrian moving through the maze of metal, a dark figure framed by flickering light. He looked unstoppable, unbreakable, but I knew better now. Luca's voice crackled over the radio. Targets inside, 3rd level, minimal guards visible, but there's movement near the west stairwell. Adrian's reply was calm, low. We go quiet, no stray shots. Find Livia, end this. The connection cut out. I stared at the radio, at the rain tracing chaotic patterns down the glass. My fingers trembled against the steering wheel. Every instinct screamed to stay where I was, to obey, to survive. But my mind replayed Gavin's words. You're standing in a nest of secrets. And I knew if I didn't see this through myself, I'd never know the truth. I grabbed Adrian's spare gun from the glove box and stepped out into the storm. The rain soaked through my jacket instantly, cold seeping into my bones. The dock lights flickered, casting long shadows that shifted like ghosts. I followed the sound, distant gunfire, echoing footsteps, the low growl of engines idling somewhere deeper in the yard. Inside the warehouse, the air smelled of oil and smoke. I crept up the stairwell, gun clutched tight, my breath shallow. Voices drifted down the hall, 2 men arguing. I told you she's not talking. She will. They always do. A sharp crack followed. A scream.
I ran before I could think, rounding the corner into a wide room lit by flood lamps. And there she was, Livia Rossi, tied to a chair, blood streaked her lip, her blonde hair matted and dark with sweat. Gavin stood behind her, casual as ever, gun in hand. Well, look who wandered in. The widow. I'm not a widow, I said, though my voice trembled. Not yet, he smiled, and it chilled me more than the rain ever could. Adrian's on his way. I was hoping he'd bring you. You always did make a good leash. Let her go, I said, leveling the gun. He chuckled. You won't shoot me. Try me. His smile widened. Oh, I believe you might try. But here's the thing, sweetheart. There's only one bullet in that gun. He took a step closer, spreading his arms. So go on. Make it count. Behind him, Livia whimpered. Her voice came out raw. Elisa, don't. He's not alone. Before I could react, movement flashed in the shadows, 2 of Gavin's men emerging from behind a container. One grabbed my wrist, twisting hard until the gun fell. I kicked, struggled, but he was stronger. Gavin took his time walking up to me, the gun still in his hand. You're brave, he said softly. Stupid, but brave. I can see why he likes you. Is that jealousy? I spat. He laughed once. Call it curiosity. What kind of woman falls in love with the man who destroyed her life? I didn't fall. I chose. That wiped the amusement from his face. Then you chose wrong. The shot came before he finished speaking, a clean, perfect echo that silenced everything else. Gavin's eyes widened, then he staggered back, clutching his side. Adrian stepped out of the shadows, gun still raised, expression carved from stone. You talk too much. Chaos erupted. Gavin's men turned, firing blindly. Adrian shoved me down, returning fire in precise bursts. Sparks exploded off the metal walls. One guard dropped, then another. The last one tried to run, but Adrian caught him with a shot to the leg, dragging him down. Gavin crawled toward the exit, blood smearing the concrete. You think this ends with me? He hissed. You'll never outrun what you built, Moretti. Adrian didn't respond. He just aimed and fired once. The sound was final. For a long time, no one moved. The air smelled like gunpowder and iron. Rain dripped through a hole in the roof, each drop echoing in the quiet. Finally, Adrian lowered his gun. It's over. Livia let out a sob. He said he'd kill my family. Adrian knelt, cutting her bindings. You should have come to me. I couldn't, she whispered. He had everything, every account, every contact. He said he would expose it all. Adrian's expression didn't change, but his voice softened. You're safe now. I stood, my legs shaky, staring at Gavin's body. Safe, I repeated under my breath. The word felt foreign, fragile, like it didn't belong to us. Adrian turned toward me, his eyes unreadable. You shouldn't have come. I'm welcome, I said again, though it sounded weaker this time. He almost smiled. Almost. You have a habit of disobeying. Only when I'm right. He reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from my face. You're alive. That's all that matters. Is it? I asked. Because every time you say that, someone else ends up dead. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or shame. You think I don't know what I've done? I think you're too used to surviving to realize what it costs. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward his men, barking orders to clear the scene. Livia was escorted out first, shivering under a blanket. Adrian stayed behind, silent, staring down at the body on the floor. When he finally looked back at me, his voice was quieter. It's done. Gavin's gone.
But it's not over, I said. He nodded once. No, it never is. We drove back in silence, the city lights blurred through the rain, turning the windows into streaks of gold and gray. I watched Adrian's reflection in the glass, the sharp jawline, the eyes fixed on something far away. When we reached the mansion, dawn was breaking. The world outside looked clean again, washed by the storm.
but inside, the weight of what we'd done hung between us like fog. I turned to him as we stepped through the door. "What happens now?" He looked at me, exhausted, almost human again. "Now, you rest." "That's not what I meant." "I know," he said quietly, "but it's the only answer I have." I stared at him for a long time, trying to find the man beneath the monster, the cracks in his armor. He didn't flinch under my gaze. He never did. Finally, I said, "You saved me again." He gave a faint smile. "You make a habit of needing it. And you make a habit of showing up." His smile faded. "Maybe one day I won't. Maybe one day I won't need you to." The space between us pulsed with everything unsaid. Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared down the hall. I stood alone in the grand, silent foyer, the storm finally gone. And for the first time, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding since the night this began. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be free of Adrian Moretti, or if I was already too far gone to ever be. The morning after Gavin's death came quietly, almost deceptively so. The sun poured through the tall windows, soft and golden, lighting every corner of the mansion, as if trying to cleanse it. But the light couldn't touch what still lingered, the ghosts of choices we couldn't undo. I sat at the breakfast table, untouched coffee cooling beside me. The house was too silent. No footsteps, no distant orders barked through earpieces, no echo of Adrian's voice. It was as if the entire place held its breath. When he finally appeared, his suit was crisp again, mask firmly back in place. The faint bruises along his jaw were the only reminders of the night before. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, pouring himself a drink that wasn't coffee. "Could you?" He didn't answer, just took a slow sip, eyes fixed somewhere beyond the window. There was a weariness in him I hadn't seen before, a man who'd won his war and realized victory didn't feel like peace. I asked, "What happens now?" "Now?" He gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "Now I rebuild. Patch what's left, cut what's rotten." "And me?" He looked at me, and the silence stretched between us. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you still want to leave." The question cut deeper than I expected. I should have said yes. I'd come here for my brother. That was done. Tragically, irreversibly done. I'd married this man out of desperation, not love. But the longer I looked at him, the harder it was to separate who I was from what I'd become. "I don't know," I said finally. "That's not like you," he said quietly. "Maybe you changed me. Or maybe you just found the parts you were afraid to face." He walked to the window, sunlight catching on the edge of his cufflinks. "You could walk away. I'd let you. No contracts, no threats. You'd be free." "Would I?" He turned, eyes sharp again. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "Yes," I whispered. "But freedom isn't the same when you've learned to survive in captivity." That made him pause. Then, softly, "You don't belong in my world, Eliza." "Maybe not, but you built a cage, and somewhere along the way, I learned how to live in it." He exhaled, jaw tightening. "Don't romanticize me. You've seen who I am. Yes, and you've seen who I can be." That silenced him. For a long moment, we just stood there, two people bound by choices that should have destroyed us. Then Luca entered, breaking the moment. "Sir, you need to see this." Adrian's voice sharpened instantly. "What is it?" Luca handed him a tablet. "Encrypted message, came through one of the dead channels. I traced it 3 minutes ago." Adrian frowned. "From who?" "Unknown source." He tapped the screen and his expression shifted from confusion to something darker. "No," he muttered. "What is it?" I asked. He turned the tablet toward me. On the screen was a single image, a man, bruised but alive, sitting in what looked like a small concrete room. My breath caught. "Daniel." "Impossible," Adrian said. "I saw the reports. The video began to play. Daniel looked straight into the camera. "Eliza, if you're seeing this, I'm alive. But I won't be for long. They said Adrian doesn't know, that he was meant to believe I died." The footage cut to static. I turned to Adrian, trembling. "You told me he was gone." He looked pale, furious at himself. "I believed it. Gavin staged it. He wanted to make sure I couldn't use your brother against him. So he's still out there? Or someone is using his name. Either way, we're going to find him." "Not we," I said. "Me." "Adrian, no." I voice hardened. "You made me a pawn once, not again. He's my brother, and I'm not sitting here while you decide what part of me to save." He stared at me, silent, then finally nodded slowly, the faintest glimmer of respect breaking through the storm in his eyes. "Then we do it together." That night, plans unfolded like chess pieces, the image metadata traced to a signal bouncing through multiple locations, each one a dead end. But one pattern emerged: a facility outside the city limits, hidden under a shell corporation tied to Gavin's old network. It was clever, almost too clever. Adrian's team assembled, quickly, armed and precise. But this time, he didn't order me to stay behind. He handed me a vest instead. "Sure about this?" he asked as I fastened the straps. "Are you?" He smirked faintly. "Not even a little." We moved under cover of night, the convoy smaller than before, the world outside the windows blurred by in streaks of neon and shadow. Adrian's hand rested loosely on the gear shift, but every line of his body was tense. "What if it's another trap?" I asked. "Then we spring it." The way he said it, calm, certain, sent a chill through me. When we arrived, the facility loomed like a ghost against the skyline. No lights, no guards, just silence. Too much of it. Adrian's men breached the door, weapons ready. Inside, the corridors were empty, lined with flickering bulbs that hummed faintly. I followed close behind Adrian, heart pounding. Then, from somewhere down the hall, came a sound, metal scraping, a faint cough. Adrian motioned for his men to fan out. We turned a corner and stopped. There, slumped against the wall, was Daniel. Alive. Barely. "Daniel!" I ran to him, dropping to my knees. His eyes fluttered open, disbelief flickering across his bruised face. "Eliza?" "Shh," I said, tears spilling before I could stop them. "It's me. I'm here." Adrian knelt beside us, assessing quickly. He's weak, dehydrated, but he's alive. Daniel's gaze shifted to him, wary. "You?" he rasped. "You were supposed to leave me." "I tried to save you," Adrian said quietly. "You call this saving?" Daniel gave a weak, bitter laugh. "Gavin set you up," Adrian said. "We thought—" Daniel coughed hard, shaking his head. "You don't get it. There's someone else. He wasn't working alone." "What do you mean?" "Someone inside your house, Adrian. Someone you trust." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Who?" But before Daniel could answer, a shot rang out. Sparks exploded from the wall beside us. Adrian threw himself over Daniel, dragging both of us down. From the darkness, a voice called out. Smooth, cold, familiar. "Nice to see you finally put the pieces together, boss." Luca stepped into the light, gun aimed directly at Adrian's chest. For a moment, time froze. The sound of that familiar voice, smooth, calm, laced with betrayal, shattered the air more than the bullet had. Luca stepped closer, his gun unwavering, his expression chillingly serene. The man who'd been at Adrian's side for years, his shadow and shield, now looked at him like prey. I was wondering how long it would take. You've built your empire on control, Adrian, but the one thing you could never control was loyalty. Adrian stood slowly, one arm extended protectively in front of me. His other hand hovered near his holster, but he didn't draw. Not yet. You've been feeding Gavin information, Adrian said. His voice was steady, but I could hear the fury coiling beneath it. Why? Why? Lucas smiled faintly. Because you forgot who made you boss. You think you built this alone? You think you're some untouchable king? You stepped on everyone who helped you climb, including me. You had everything. Power, money, loyalty. Loyalty? Luca laughed. I gave you everything. Years, blood. You gave me scraps. So I made a better deal. Gavin, Adrian said. He offered you a throne that doesn't exist. No, he offered me freedom, the one thing you never would. He turned his gaze to me then, sharp and calculating. And her. You made her part of this mess too. You really are losing your edge. Put the gun down, Luca, Adrian said quietly. You're making a mistake. Oh, I already made one. I waited too long. Then he pulled the trigger. The blast echoed through the concrete hallway. Adrian staggered back, clutching his side, the bloom of red spreading fast across his shirt. My scream tore through the air before I could stop it. Adrian! He fell to one knee, blood dripping between his fingers. Luca turned the gun toward me, smirking. Don't worry, Mrs. Moretti. I'll take good care of what's left of his empire. Maybe even keep you around for the nostalgia. I moved without thinking. My hand found Adrian's dropped weapon before my fear could stop me. I fired once. The shot hit Luca's arm, spinning him back. He howled, dropping the gun. Adrian lunged despite the wound, tackling him to the ground. They struggled. Two predators locked in a death dance. The sound of fists and fury filled the air. Luca was strong, but rage gave Adrian strength I'd never seen. He slammed him against the wall, again and again until the concrete cracked. Then he pressed the gun against his former friend's chest. Tell me why I shouldn't end you right now, Adrian growled. Luca spat blood, laughing. Because I'm the only one who knows what's coming. What does that mean? Adrian demanded. You think Gavin was the end? He was just a piece. There's someone bigger, someone watching everything. Who? Luca's grin returned, teeth red. You'll find out soon enough. Adrian's eyes darkened. No, you'll tell me now. But Luca's hand moved fast, too fast. He yanked a small blade from his boot and slashed forward. Adrian twisted, but the blade cut deep along his side. Instinct overrode mercy. He fired once. Luca slumped against the wall, a look of disbelief frozen on his face. Then nothing. For a moment, all I could hear was my heartbeat. Wild, frantic. Then I was at Adrian's side, pressing my hands to his wound. Stay still, I said, panic clawing at my throat. You're losing too much blood. He gave a weak laugh. You always say that. I mean it this time. He winced as I pressed harder. You're bossy when you're scared. Then I must be terrified. Daniel stirred nearby, groaning as he pushed himself upright. We need to move. Now. He was right. Luca's gunfire would draw attention. Adrian's men were somewhere outside, but we couldn't wait. I hooked my arm under Adrian's shoulder, helping him stand. I can walk, he muttered. Sure you can. Just humor me. We stumbled through the hallway, every step leaving streaks of blood. When we reached the exit, Adrian's men came rushing toward us. One of them, Marco, paled when he saw Luca's body behind us. Sir. He cut him off. Later, he said, his voice faint but firm. Get us out. They loaded him into the SUV, Daniel and I close behind. The ride back was a blur of sirens, static, and adrenaline. I kept pressure on his wound, refusing to let go even as his eyes fluttered. "You are not allowed to die," I whispered fiercely. "Not after everything." His lips curved in a faint, bloody smile. "You give terrible orders. Then disobey me, like you always do." He laughed. Quiet, weak, but alive. Deal. Hours later, the mansion was chaos. Doctors moved in and out of Adrian's room, their voices urgent. I waited outside, my hands still stained with his blood. Daniel sat beside me, pale and silent. When the door finally opened, one of the doctors approached. "He'll live. Barely. You got him here just in time." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Daniel looked at me. "You care about him." It wasn't a question. I stared at the closed door. "I shouldn't." "But you do." "Yes. And I don't know what that makes me." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. We both knew the truth. Love and destruction had always walked hand in hand in this world. When I finally went into Adrian's room, the night was deep again, moonlight spilling across the sheets. He looked almost peaceful, the lines of pain softened by sleep. I sat beside him, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "You're too stubborn to die, and I'm too stubborn to leave."
His eyes opened then, slow and hazy. "I told you, cages suit you." "Maybe," I said softly, "but you're the one who built the key." He smiled faintly, then winced. "Luca? Gone. Good." "But he said something," I added. "Someone else is coming. Someone bigger." Adrian's expression hardened, even in weakness. "Then we'll be ready." "We?" He reached for my hand, his grip surprisingly firm. "You married me to save your brother, but now you're part of this, whether you like it or not." I looked down at our intertwined hands. "And if I walk away?" "Then I'll find you, not to cage you, just to make sure the world doesn't swallow you whole." I smiled through the tears I refused to shed. "That sounds like a threat." He shook his head, his eyes already heavy with sleep again. "No, Eliza, it's a promise." As he drifted off, I sat there, watching him breathe, wondering when love had become indistinguishable from danger. Outside, the first rumble of thunder rolled across the sky again, low and distant, like a warning. Somewhere out there, another storm was coming, and this time, I wasn't sure either of us would survive it. The following days unfolded like a fragile ceasefire between two storms. The mansion became a recovery ward, a command center, and a confession box all at once. Doctors came and went, men spoke in hushed tones, and the air buzzed with quiet preparation. Adrian slept through most of it, his body healing, but his empire restless. Every time I passed his door, I felt the strange gravity of it, like stepping too close to something that could burn you alive. When he finally woke for more than a few minutes, I was there, sitting by the window, reading one of his books. Something about strategy, war disguised as philosophy. He stirred, and I looked up. "You read that," he murmured. His voice was rough, like gravel dragged through smoke. "Sun Tzu. You really have a copy of The Art of War by your bedside? Very on brand." He managed a faint smile. "You'd be surprised how much of it applies to marriage." I laughed softly, shaking my head. "You're impossible." "And yet," he said, eyes steady on mine, "you're still here." I didn't answer right away. The truth was, I'd tried to imagine leaving. I'd replayed the idea like a mantra, packing my things, walking out, starting over, but every version of that story ended the same way, with the sound of his voice echoing somewhere in my memory, the ghost of his touch reminding me that peace was never going to feel like silence again. I don't know why. I should hate you. Maybe you do. You just hate me less than you need me. Maybe, I whispered. Or maybe we're just both broken in ways that fit. He studied me for a long time, the silence between us charged with everything that had never been said. Then he reached for my hand, slow and careful, like he wasn't sure I'd let him.
I did. Daniel's stable. He's resting downstairs. When he's ready, I'll give him enough money to disappear. Somewhere far away. Somewhere safe. You'd do that for him? I asked softly. I'd do that for you. He said simply. It was the first time his words didn't sound like a deal. Not power, not leverage, just truth. 2 nights later, the storm returned. Thunder rolled across the horizon as the power flickered in the mansion. I found Adrian in his office, standing by the window again, staring into the rain. His wound had healed enough for him to move freely, but his eyes had that same haunted focus, the calm before another war. They'll come, he said without turning. Luca wasn't lying. There's someone else behind all of this. I stepped closer. Then tell me what you know. He turned toward me, jaw tight. There's a name that keeps showing up in old records. Silvano. Used to be a ghost in the business, one of the old families thought to be dead. If he's resurfacing, then everything Gavin did, the leaks, the attacks, it was just groundwork. So this isn't over. It never is, but this time I won't drag you into it. Too late. I'm already here. He gave a quiet laugh. You don't know when to quit. Neither do you. He crossed the room, stopping just inches from me. Then promise me something. What? If I don't make it, if this ends the way most things in my life do, walk away. Don't become me. I met his gaze. Then don't make me watch you die trying to be something you're not. Something shifted in his expression then, an exhaustion, an honesty I'd never seen before. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine, the storm outside flashing white against the glass. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Good, because I'm not a reward. He smiled faintly, and for a heartbeat, the world felt quiet again. Later that night, I found Daniel sitting by the fire, a blanket draped over his shoulders. He looked stronger, though the light in his eyes had dimmed. The weight of everything we'd lost sat between us like a third presence. You're leaving, I said. He nodded. I have to. If I stay, it'll never end. Maybe it won't, even if you go.
He gave a small, broken smile. At least I'll die somewhere that isn't painted in his colors. I looked down. He's not all bad. No, Daniel said. He's worse, because he makes you forget you deserve better. His words cut deeper than I wanted to admit, but he wasn't wrong. Adrian was the wound I kept choosing to reopen. Take care of yourself, I said quietly. He squeezed my hand once before standing. You too, sis. Don't let him turn you into his shadow. And then he was gone. By dawn, the mansion was silent again. Adrian hadn't slept. I could hear him moving in the study below, the quiet rustle of papers and glass. When I finally went to him, the first rays of light were cutting through the storm clouds, turning everything silver and sharp. He looked up as I entered. He's gone. Yes. Good, he said softly. He deserves a chance at something clean. And you? He smiled faintly. I stopped believing in clean a long time ago. I stepped closer. Then believe in me instead. That caught him off guard. For a moment, he just stared at me, like he was seeing something he didn't know how to name. Then he reached out, his fingers brushing the back of my neck, pulling me closer. Careful, Eliza, he whispered. That sounds a lot like love. Maybe it is. Or maybe it's just survival. He laughed, low and tired. Either way, it's ours. The storm finally broke outside, sunlight spilling through the windows as the rain faded into mist. For the first time in months, the air didn't feel like it was suffocating me. We stood there, 2 people bound by blood, betrayal, and something far too dangerous to name. The world outside was rebuilding itself, one fragile second at a time. And maybe, just maybe, we would too. Because in the end, I hadn't just married the ruthless mafia boss to save my brother. I'd married the man who refused to let me go. And somehow, somewhere between ruin and redemption, I'd stopped wanting him to.